everybody, welcome back to Grip 4x4 Adventures. Today we spent the day changing out the lower control arms in the Nissan. Hasn't gone as hard as what I thought it was going to be. It's taken about 3 hours to do. Definitely would suggest that everybody is going to attempt this. Gets themselves a good set of sockets and a cordless impact rattle gun. Amazing products. The one I've been using is the AMG half-inch rattle gun. I don't think I'll ever repair cars the same way. I've just lowered the car down off the jacks. It's now time to take it for a test drive, see how it goes. But before we do that, I'll show you the video.
So this is a video that I didn't do any talking in, so I've just gone and recorded some of the stuff that we've done. So as you can see here, I'm removing the brake calipers. Make sure when you remove the brake caliper, you hang it up out of the way so you don't stretch your brake cables or put a crack in it. So this one we're removing now is the caliper holder. I needed to use a bigger breaker bar as these bolts were quite tight. Next, you'll need to use a hammer just to tap off your brake rotors. Sometimes they can just get a bit of dirt and crap in them. Now we're going to remove the nut. This is where the impact rattle gun came into its own. Amazing piece of product. As you can see, it just comes straight off without any hassles. That's a 32mm socket as well, just for anyone who's interested. So far, nothing's been too hard to get undone. This suspension at the front has been undone quite a lot when we've replaced the suspension and any other parts. As you can see there, we're just tapping the ball joint just to break it loose. That's for the steering arm. I use this long breaker bar quite often. It makes life so much easier. The short ones are great for small areas, but this long one just allows you to break the bolts so easily. This one's actually a ratchet one, which I haven't seen before. So breaker bar with a ratchet, have a look out for it. And of course, I keep forgetting that I've actually got a rattle gun to undo some of these bolts. Would have made it so much faster. So I have a confession to make. Removing this cable and the clip, which is just out of sight, was actually really difficult. It took me over 5 minutes to get that clip apart. Yeah, not the best. I've already removed the nut from the ball joint. Just trying to tap it out with a hammer. It doesn't seem to want to come, but also make sure you use a bit of timber. What I've done now is I've just decided to get the rattle gun out there just to spin it and see if we can break any of the corrosion that's inside it. I've d40'd all this stuff, but it's actually came off pretty easily once we spun it. Just tapped it with the hammer with a bit of timber and out it came. Perfect. Usually with this top upper control arm ball joint, you need to loosen the bolt off and hit with a hammer to loosen it up, but mine has come apart so often it isn't stuck anymore. So make sure that you leave the nut on as well when you hit it so that it doesn't spring off and be loaded up. As you can see now, we're removing the CV joint. It was a bit tight in there, so I've just put the nut back on and just give it a gentle tap with a hammer and just keep removing the nut out and tapping it till it comes free. It's not too hard to get the CV joint out. It's just a weird angle to get it through the hole just push it out of the way and continue on. It's important to support the bottom of the lower control arm when you're trying to remove the hub assembly. I just put a jack underneath, jacked it up, and then just used the pry bar to push it down and remove it. It came off relatively easy. Just a standard pry bar you get from Bunnings, straight off. So now, after all that hard work, it's now time to remove the lower control arms. The bolts on this actually relatively came out easy enough. WD-40'd them for about a week. Used my drill, actually my impact drill, which I use for work, and came straight out. No hassles, no dramas. And now, after all your hard work, it's time to remove the lower control arm. And there she goes. The ball joints were a little bit wobbly and a bit loose. And the bushes were shagged. So this is the reason why we were replacing them. So it's important just to line it all up and put it back in the same way. The bolt at the back is where you get your camber adjustment. So make sure you keep an eye on how that comes out to make sure you get the bolt back in correctly. Putting the hub assembly back on was more difficult than what I thought. I had to use the jack underneath to jack it up and tap it gently to be able to get it to slide back into the socket. This part took a bit longer than I thought, just lining it back up so it was perfect. Had to use a hammer to manipulate it into place, but finally got it in the end. Definitely would recommend for anybody who is going to do this a nice big lump hammer and a good quality jack, as I definitely needed these to be able to get it back together. The ball joint has a little sort of notched out section where the bolt slides through. It's important to make sure that's lined up before you try and tap in your ball joint bolt. After you've got it all back together and you're happy with what you've got and it's all nicely lined up, it's time to start putting it back together. It's important to use the jack here to push the lower control arm up so you can reconnect your top ball joint to your upper control arm. Make sure you put the nut back on first before you release the jack. It's important to have a bit of pressure on the ball joint at the top just so you can turn the nut, otherwise it spins around. Also remember that once you've done this job, to make sure you get a wheel alignment done, as you will have disturbed the camber and caster of the lower control arm, and also you may have inadvertently changed the toe in, toe out when you've removed your steering arm. Time for my favourite tool again to retighten up the CV nut. Now I have to say, reconnecting this cable was a lot easier than disconnecting it. It's now time to put your brake rotor back on. Just slip straight on, no hassles, no dramas. you need to reinstall your caliper holder. It's easier to slip your brake pads back in to your caliper holder than try and put it all together at once. Slide them in, cut your calipers off and reinstall. It's important now to go back over all your bolts and tighten by hand. Even though you may have used an impact rattle gun or even a normal air rattle gun, it's important to go back over them and re-tighten everything up, as you certainly do not want this to come loose when you're driving along. I also got my local mechanic, when he did the wheel alignment, to torque up all the bolts that I'd removed to the specified Newton meter ratings. It's important that these bolts are tightened up to the correct rate. On the home stretch here now, just making sure you put all your split pins back in. It's important that these go in, as you do not want these bolts or nuts to come loose when you're driving. That's one thing that I didn't show you in the beginning, was I removed the sway bar bolts already when I jacked up the car. It makes it so much easier to get the downward travel that you require, but you make sure you lift both sides up before removing the sway bar bolts. It makes it so much easier. So we've completed both sides now, just doing a quick check to make sure everything's turning correctly, not fouling up or getting caught on anything. All seems pretty good. Let's put the tyre back on and give it a test drive. This is where my 3-year-old decided to join me for a quick donut break and have a quick test of the rattle gun.
I'll tell you what, I'll have this one, you have that one. Deal? That is deal? That's my fault, isn't it? How many's in there? What about Mummy? Mummy's in one? Fuck you. Come out. Hey? You want to do? Yeah. Ready? Okay, ready? Hey, pull. 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 Wrong way. Okay, you pull. Go. Pull. That trigger. That one. Come back. That one. Woo!
I think it's so important that our girls and sons know a little bit about what they're doing with cars, so certainly she will be helping me out in the future again, because she's also such great fun to hang out with. Alright guys, that's it done now. Time to take it for a test drive, but just want to say a massive big thanks for watching to the end. If you like what you see, subscribe, hit the like button, and you'll see some more content of mine when it comes up. But if you like the channel, have a look at the rest of the stuff. We've done some forward driving through Port Macquarie, Fraser Island, the Wadigans and Lithgow. But check it out. Thanks very much guys for watching.